Is there a method to the chaos of Khamzat Chimaev? The Chechen fighter comes out of the gate like a bat out of hell, relentlessly attacks without giving his foe much room to breathe, much less mount a counterattack. Boers is a nightmare, point blank. Today my aim is to look at the relentless offensive output from Khamzat Chimaev. We will look at his favorite ways to set up a takedown and how he controls his opponents on the ground once he gets them there. Well-rounded as he is, damage on the ground is where Khamzat Chimaev really shines. The relentlessness starts from here. Khamzat Chimaev is content to counter on the feet and sit back, especially as the rounds go. But when he decides for a takedown, he goes for it with a vigor that the fans of the Dagestani dynasty will find familiar. Now, Khamzat Chimaev's go-to technique is the double leg takedown. He will shoot for the hips and look to drive his opponents to the fence if he can't complete the initial shot. Khamzat Chimaev's main goal at the start of a fight is to expose the hips of an opponent with a strike or a feint, and then shoot in on the hips. At the start of nearly every fight, Khamzat Chimaev is showing a strike or actually throwing a strike high and shooting in on the hips. He begins feinting high against Li Jingliang. Li wants to counter and throws a wide right hook with his hips exposed. In the traditional freestyle wrestling style, Khamzat Chimaev is on a knee and slides into Li Jingliang's hips, turns the corner and drives through for the only takedown he would need. This is the go-to for Khamzat Chimaev. High kick, takedown. Jab high, takedown. Fake glove touch, takedown. Chimaev wants to get to the hips and will do so by any and all means available to him. Now, how do you prevent this? Fighters like Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns have had success by simply not engaging off the first ring of the bell, opting for a slower start and a longer feeling out process. But should a fighter find Khamzat Chimaev in on their hips and to a body lock, as he often builds to off of a failed takedown, a whizzer is your best friend. With his gas tank being his biggest issue, slowing down Khamzat Chimaev from the initial bell is critical. Ikram Aliskerov and Gilbert Burns demonstrated this in the two fights with Khamzat Chimaev. In this sequence, Khamzat Chimaev is in on the body lock of Ikram Aliskerov. Khamzat Chimaev loves a body lock and, as we will see in the next section, is lethal with it. Aliskerov will immediately dig the overhook and begin to turn his hips to counter Chimaev from getting underneath him. Notice how Khamzat Chimaev still has the body lock, but Aliskerov has also kept his overhook. Without a good base, Khamzat Chimaev tries to turn into Aliskerov and push through. Aliskerov will have to switch his hips and put his weight on top of Chimaev. Because of the whizzer, Aliskerov is able to sprawl the takedown and stay out of harm's way for the time being. Now, if you thought Khamzat Chimaev was lethal in space of the octagon, just wait till you understand his work against the cage. For all intents and purposes, Khamzat Chimaev's approach against the cage is the typical Dagestani approach. While Khamzat Chimaev is from Chechnya, his game is very clearly influenced by Khabib Nurmagomedov. Wrestling against the cage is Khamzat Chimaev's bread and butter, especially early in a fight. He will often drive to the fence after coming up on a body lock from a failed takedown attempt. When against the cage, he often positions his thigh under his opponent as he lifts them up and attempts to sweep them to the cage, where he will implement his ground and pound approach. Before we look at said ground and pound, let's take a look at the basics. I'm going to throw it over to an animation made by Ghost. So our first segment in the cage will be from Ghost on X. Make sure you give him a follow. In this short video sequence, he explains how Chimaev will get to the fence and, despite not being perfect, is completely aware of what his opponent is doing and adjusts to what is given to him. We see Khamzat Chimaev pressing to the fence, losing the posture battle, and posting into the fence to pivot to a takedown. It's the chain wrestling and the constant searching for the next takedown that makes defending attempts from Khamzat Chimaev so difficult. Taking too long in a position to actually make your move allows your opponent to mount their defense, be it pummeling, turning and fighting the hands, or coming up on a single leg. Instead, Khamzat Chimaev, like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev, are quick to shoot and take down, and quick to move on to another takedown if they're met with resistance that they aren't happy with. What comes of this is that suffocating pressure that most fighters have found incredibly tough to deal with. Khamzat Chimaev is arguably at his best when he's against the fence with a body lock. Despite Aleskarov and Burns having success with the whizzer, most aren't so fortunate. When Khamzat Chimaev had Rhys McKee against the fence, McKee grabbed the overhook needed. Originally, Khamzat Chimaev looked for the sweep, but before he could turn and throw or defend, Chimaev lifts McKee up and scoots his leg from under McKee. Here, he looks to prevent McKee from throwing forward with the overhook by sweeping him backwards over his two legs against the fence. He throws and Khamzat Chimaev turns and takes side control. Khamzat Chimaev also looks for sweeps in the middle of the cage off the body lock too, often looking to trip from the inside or the outside.
This is where the fun begins.
It is worth noting how effective Khabib Nurmagomedov was with wrist control. It became known as the Dagestani handcuff, but the name had already existed for decades. Much like his Dagestani neighbors, Khamzat Chimaev is always looking to trap wrists and take away posts from his opponents once he's on the ground. It's part of his two-prong approach to ground and pound, wrist control and one hook in. Once to the ground, Khamzat Chimaev starts fishing for a wrist. It doesn't matter to him if it's his left or the right wrist that he's going for. Khamzat Chimaev wants to take the post away and isolate a hand. Khamzat Chimaev starts out with wrist control. As Chimaev is looking for the ground and pound, Sidney Wheeler covers up, making Khamzat Chimaev's hammer fist less effective. Chimaev pulls out the arm, which opens up the head for more effective ground and pound. When his opponents start to post up, Khamzat Chimaev will use wrist control to pull the post out from under them. This prevents the get up. The perfect example of this was easily Khabib Nurmagomedov ragdolling Edson Barboza. But right now, it's Khamzat Chimaev who uses it the best in the current roster of mixed martial arts. Another staple of the Dagestani approach is one hook in against the fence. This opens up another avenue for Khamzat Chimaev to take away a post and continue his assault. Often, Khamzat Chimaev will wedge himself between an opponent, cutting off the wall walk. He will then fish for wrist control to remove the post with the hand. As he's doing that, or before, there's no real order here. Khamzat Chimaev will take whatever's available first. He puts one hook in and will scoop out the leg if it is posted on. This effectively removes any sort of posting to get up, and fighters have to eat the shots, which risk being finished, or compromising the position by going to all fours, presenting the back, or going to a back, which allows Khamzat Chimaev to get to full mount. Traditionally, 3 post points are needed for a get up. It's not impossible with 2, and going to a different position to get enough posts compromises positions. As seen earlier, John Phillips was denied an arm, wrist control, a knee, a hook in, and Khamzat Chimaev wedged between he and the fence, which takes away the wall walk. Phillips was forced to fend off a choke, go to all fours, and Khamzat Chimaev re-established position, starting the vicious cycle all over again. Khamzat Chimaev's relentless pursuit of offenses carried him through his 13 career wins at the time of this video. He aims to jump out to an early lead and, despite his gas tank issues, continues to do so. Fighters like he and Benoit Saint-Denis come out to kill. Khamzat Chimaev's holes are glaring, but the will to implement his own attack seems to be an impossible mountain to scale.